24, we've got this triangle XYZ. Z is a right angle, so let's go ahead and sketch this. So here is Z, and we'll call this X and Y. And where you put the X and the Y don't really matter at this point. I could have done the Y at the top and the X on the bottom, and it makes no difference. So this is a right angle. The length of YZ is 24. So tan of X is 12 over 35. So tan of X is 12 over 35. What is the perimeter of this triangle? So the first thing to remember here, very important on these harder trig problems, is when we're given this trig value, right, tan of X is 12 over 35. We know from SOHCAHTOA that tangent is opposite over adjacent. So you might be tempted to say, okay, the side across from the X is 12 and the adjacent side, which would be XC, is 35, and cool. But we run into a problem. We already know the side across from X is 24. So there seems to be a contradiction here, but there really isn't. What we have to remember is this is a ratio. The ratio of YZ to XC is 12 to 35. It does not mean the length of YZ is 12 and the length of XC is 35. So what we can do here is say, look, if I look at the triangle as written, I know the tan of X would be, well, it's the opposite, which is 24, over the adjacent, which we'll just call XC. This is the ratio we actually have, but I know ultimately it equals this ratio of 12 over 35. So I can just solve this proportion for XZ and find the actual length of XZ based on that ratio. Now, in this case, it's kind of an easy multiplier, right? It looks like the real sides are 2 times the ratio values. So that suggests that XZ is 70. But you could, cross multiply, divide both sides by 12. You'll get 70. Okay, we want the perimeter, which means I need XY. So how am I going to get XY? Well, I can just do Pythagorean theorem. 24 squared plus 70 squared equals C squared. We'll call this C. So I'm going to do 24 squared plus 70 squared. I get 5476. I'll square root both sides. Whoops, we'll square root both sides. And we get 74. So C is 74. The perimeter will now just be the sum of these sides. So 24 plus 70 plus 74. We get 168, and that's choice B. So the lesson from this one is when you're given a trig value, it does not necessarily tell you what the sides are equal to. It just gives you a ratio. It could have been the case that the opposite side was 12 and the adjacent is 35. Sure. But in this case, it was 24 and 70. It could have been 36 and 105 or 120 and 350. All we know is that's a ratio. So you may have to set up a proportion to solve for what's missing, but then proceed from there. And in this case, we do get choice B.